Welcome everyone. This is the Producers Hangout. This is episode 10, August 2014. I am Flux of fluxwithit.com, producer, sound designer, synth nut. And I have with us today, we've got Corey from B-Boy Tech Report. So I'm going to pass it off to him, let him introduce himself.
Yo, what's going on? This is Corey from B-Boy Tech Report. It's good to be here with the homies, and let's chop it up.
All right, next we'll move on to Kev West of KevWestBeats.com.
What up? Kev here, KevWestBeats.com. Producer, reviewer, of course, I think everybody knows about that, and avid gamer. Ready to
Welcome everyone. Producers Hangout. This is episode 10.
Oh, shit.
August doing some silliness.
I heard the claps and thought that was somebody doing it over me.
Producer, sound designer, synth nut. Corey, is that you? I have with us today, we've got Corey.
Yeah, somebody has the live stream actually open on the browser. There we go.
Okay, so moving on, we'll head over to Mike of padbangers.com.
What's up, guys? Mike here with padbangers.com. German hip-hop and electronic music producer, blogger, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy the show.
And we have a special guest today. This is Sal. Sal, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for a second here?
Hey guys, Sal DeGuardia. Currently out of work and just messing around with the Producer Hangout contest. That's about all I'm doing right now. But
all right.
Yeah.
Well, before we even get into the show too deep, why don't we talk about the contest a little bit first? So we recently ran a contest on sound design for a short piece of film. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about where the film came from first, and kind of give us a rundown on that?
Yeah, sure. So the film we took was from a Spanish artist called Daniel Ivan, which does amazing digital art. He does a lot of video stuff, and I saw his videos like maybe 6 months ago the first time, and I was totally impressed because he really filmed some impressive images from his hometown and stuff like that. And so I contacted him because I wanted to do a contest in the group, and I contacted him and asked if we could have permission to use this video because, as you probably can imagine, it's not easy to find somebody who's willing to give us the video, let us allow you to strip the audio and do something new with it. But he was totally cool, and he was very looking forward to the results. And yeah, so Sal did a great job on it, so he won the contest. And oh yeah, we did the contest with modaudio.com, which do a lot of great sound packs, and yeah, that's it.
So why don't we explain exactly what he won, as well, going along with that.
About to stop rolling.
What did you say?
Explaining what he won.
What he won?
Yes.
He won sounds from Audio.
Yeah. So what we're going to do now is we'll actually play the clip that he scored and give you guys a chance to check it out. So let's take a look at this right now. And here we go. Let me pull this up. Oh, and of course it's going to buffer because we are strict. But that makes sense. So a little bit dark.
It's dope though.
I like it.
Thanks,
So,
man.
I like the grooves that was going on there.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about where you're sourcing some of the sounds? What sort of techniques you were using on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the original video, if you go to Daniel's original video, which we have posted in the original contest announcement on the Producers Hangout, there were some cues that I took from the original track that I thought, I could definitely see where he wanted it to go, but it seemed like he was either limited or maybe purposefully kind of holding back on like the first half of the video. Because the second half he kind of opens up a little bit and he does some really neat stuff sonically there. But yeah, I started playing the video. I opened up a project in Reason, so I'm a Reason 7 user, and started whoop, whoop, and I started with just some of the basic pads. I wanted to get some of the same tonality and some of the same feel in there to start, and then just kind of built on that with adding some of the beats and the loops. The very first part though, and it's hard to appreciate when it's video over the chat.
Of course, and we'll have
yeah.
the link posted in the description as well.
Yeah, it's there's about I think it's 30 little pulses that logo, that kind of barcode logo has in it. So it has like this pulse to it, and it's not timed out at all. So I had to go through and do the hard math of actually timing a glitch sound effect for every single one of those, and then put the glitch sound effects on top of just kind of a basic like a sub, like an 808 sub that just kind of filtered in and out on it to give it kind of that heartbeat kind
What
of a
were
sound.
you using
That was the toughest
to
part.
trigger those?
So I did it all manually. I literally just watched the video, got the time code, transferred that over to minutes and seconds, and built it from scratch.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I had to actually bounce back and forth. So that's one of the limitations of Reason. So propeller head, please, at some point. There's not really like an Adobe Premiere plugin, so I had to play it in Premiere, do the math on the time code, then go back to Reason and actually figure out where that was in the timeline. So it was a lot of work, but I liked it. I liked the way that those sound effects came through in the beginning. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a fun piece of video to play with too. So it gives you a lot of opportunity to take it in your own direction, and I like the dark tones of it.
Thanks very much. And I apologize as I did when I posted it. Hey, no laughing, because it's honestly that's like the first piece of work that I've really put out publicly of it, other than a couple samples on SoundCloud. But I was excited just to take part in it, and thank you guys for putting it together. Mike, thanks for getting us the hookup with Mode Audio. I'm very excited because they have refills for me, so I'm looking forward to making more music with that. It'll be fun.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So one of the topics that we decided we were going to discuss today was going to be about essentially producers who are maybe just starting out, or maybe have been in it for a little while, but are forcing themselves to go too deep too fast, and what kind of issues that can cause, such as instead of worrying so much about proper gain staging and mixing, jumping straight into mastering. And I'm actually going to toss this over to Kev West first, because I know that he has some thoughts on this. So why don't you take that?
Well, I saw the Machine Masters topic. I think somebody posted it in the Hangout the other day, and it kind of just, my imagination just went wild with this, thinking, yeah, like so many people do this. So many people, they want to be this huge, big producer, and they think that you should do it in the first year, the first 2 years. And I'll be honest, maybe it's because I've been doing it for so long. When I started out, it took me a year. I started off with just Reason 2.0. It took me a year just to really grasp Reason. And I think a lot of people, they're expecting themselves to be amazing in a month or in a year or something. I've seen guys, especially you go on audio forums, you see it in the hip hop ones, where they, oh, you've been producing for 5 years and you haven't produced for such and such an artist? Like, oh, what are you doing with your life? And it takes time, patience. Anything worth doing is worth taking your time doing to do right, at least in my opinion. And I thought it would be a good idea for all of us to put our thoughts out there. Because I believe, some of us, well, not all of us, have some influence on these newer, younger producers. What do you guys think?
Let me ask Corey. Corey, when you're, because I'll tell you right now, I'm actually a fan of Corey's work. I love his beats.
Thanks, man.
I gotta ask. So when you're putting out your albums, do you handle your own mixing and mastering, or are you sending it out?
I'll tell you, man. First, thanks for the good words on the music that I do. But I have to tell you, man, I do mostly all of my, like the album that I produced and put out in 2012, Pathway. And I mean, out of my work, that's some of my personal favorite of my own, because I had Sadat X on there, and Illmind produced a joint on there. But I produced maybe 80% of the tracks on there. And obviously, I do my own writing and all that stuff. But the problem is, here's what, at the core, I'm an MC. That's my life's blood. Somehow, all of this other stuff came from that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's interesting how that all works. The reason I started producing was because I got tired of, I'm originally from Chicago, even though I'm in LA for the last 10 years and will be here. But I can remember running around Chicago and chasing after producers and trying to get to people's places, and people not having the same work ethic. And, some people did have good work ethic, but can you get into their house as often as you want to lay down beats and record? No. So then it became a thing of necessity for me to buy my own MPC. You know what I mean? The hood tactics, taxes came. And I was like, I'm going to buy me an MPC because I'm tired of running to these dudes' houses. But, long story short, I started producing out of necessity. And when it comes to the music that I put out, yeah, I produce most of it. I mix most of it, because I had to learn to get my chops up. Because that's one thing about producing. At some point, you probably want to learn how to mix, because people will butcher your stuff if they don't know the aesthetics of the music that you're making. And I've been through that too. I had a manager at one point, and the dude, he was hell-bent on the 80s way of doing music. When I say that, not old music, but the aesthetics and the whole operations of it all. You have to pay to get into a big professional $1 million room, and you have to rent an engineer, and you have to do all of it. But what I found in going to those big studios is that I wasn't as satisfied as I was just coming out of my house. So then I knew I got to get my own mixing chops up, right? So it kind of became, the more I got my mixing chops up, the better my production became, because it was like a full expression of what you were doing. You know what I mean?
Did you find that this is a progression that took place over a long period of time, or?
Hell yeah, it was a long time, yo. I mean, so I've been rapping since the 90s or 80s. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I started producing my own beats like 2001, 2002. And it takes a little while to get comfortable with that. And then, I went all hardware. I sold all hardware, went software. Then, through the years, I don't know, mixing, probably 2008. But then what I didn't realize is when I started mixing, I knew more than I thought I knew, because I'd been a student for so long. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's a process, and I think you're right. A lot of people think they could just jump in, or the other thing, we all hear it. I'm gonna get that thing because he did this thing with that, and I'm pretty certain that it's a magic button I can press on it.
We've all been there.
Yeah, you know. So it's a process, man. It's taken years to evolve into, you know, the music that I actually put out that you hear that you might like. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I find that a lot of I hear that same story from a lot of producers as far as I got into this as a necessity, and then kind of grew into it, and it becomes a natural path, myself included. You know, I started as a guitarist and then an MC for many years, and I had the exact same background as far as, you know, dealing with producers and not being happy with results and work ethics and things of that nature, and graduating on from there. But in the same regard as many of the producers that I deal with who come from DJing first before becoming producers, it's a natural evolution, and they get the ear for certain things. They understand how certain blends work. They understand how EQing works, because albeit on a DJ mixer, you might be dealing with only a 3-band EQ, you know, for traditional hip-hop DJs at least. You know, it still gets you in tune with that same idea of making sounds have space, and giving yourself a way to blend sounds without letting things clash, and that sort of thing, which translates later into production, which translates later into mixing. But this is all things that are learned over a long period of time. This is not something that is rushed, because it really, in my opinion, you can't rush it. You could, of course, be under tutelage of someone who's explaining things to you, but even in that regard, just as, you know, a instrumentalist is learning to play their instrument, you can learn the chords, you can learn the keys, but you still need to understand how they sound and relate them as you play. It's the same thing.
And on top of that, finding yourself in what you learned. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I find it's a journey, as opposed to just a direct, instant, here's the math of it, this is what works, this is the defined path, and then going from there. For me, it just seems to be more of a evolution, regardless of who you are, regardless of whether you're going to Full Sail or whether you're, you know, just interning at a small studio, or whether you're learning on your own in your basement, whatever. I still see the same mistakes, same foundations that all of a sudden are like aha moments. But Mike, let me ask you about your mixing and how you feel about finalizing.
I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I'm kind of like a control freak, so I want to do as much as possible. But on the other hand, I know I'm not good at mastering at all. I don't have the room for proper mastering, so I have to give it out. And that's something I would really give people, especially the newbies, as an advice. It's not about doing everything itself, but it's about finding people you can work with and who know what you want. And first of all, you need to know yourself what you want to do. So learning is always good. If you want to learn about mixing and mastering, do as much as you want to do, but don't put yourself into a position that you always have to do it yourself. Because the other side of the sword, what I meant in the beginning is, if you want to do too much, you can do a lot of stuff, but you probably won't end up being average at it and not really good. So find your stuff, that focus on your strengths, and give all the stuff that you feel is your weakness. Give this out to people to make it their strength. And yeah, that's kind of my advice for. Yeah.
I want to ask Kev West for a second about, because I know that he's a very in the box guy, and in my opinion at least, there's a large difference between guys who are recording with acoustic microphones and you're dealing with lots of dynamic variance, whereas when you're dealing inside of the box and mostly digital, you can really kind of keep control of a lot of your dynamics. And if you keep control of a lot of your dynamics and your EQ, there is, there's a couple of trains of thought, and one of the trains of thought is that you don't necessarily need mastering as much as the old days because we're dealing less with acoustic drum sets, external guitars, external sources, horns, that sort of thing, where the dynamics are all over the place, the EQ is all over the place. We can actually tailor as we go. So as someone who works inside of the box, I'm interested to know, how often do you find yourself needing to go outside of your own scope in order to get the sound that you want on the finalized track?
Usually not too often. Actually, I think I might have sent it to somebody who was trying to learn mastering. Once I sent the track out once or twice. But for the most part, I'm very big on do-it-yourself. I like a really lo-fi home bass sound. That's just the kind of sound I like. And I realize that's the kind of sound I'm looking for. So for me, it's about what sound are you looking for, and knowing yourself, like Corey mentioned before. If you know what you want, then it's really easy to get that. And if you don't know how to get that sound, that's when you get somebody to come and help.
I think that's a very interesting point. Being a fan of a lot of grimier styles of music, such as punk and older hip hop, and a fan of the lo-fi sound, that there is something to be said for that. There's something scary about that in the same sense that definitely, as Mike was alluding to, the fact of a home studio is certainly not a mastering studio, is certainly not able to reproduce the same frequency spectrum in the same way that an actual mastering studio can. And then along with that, of course, the experience that we've been talking about, and the years of dedication to that exact craft. But at the same time, like he says, there is something to be said in some regards to lo-fi sound, and not even just lo-fi sound, but happy accidents in a way.
And I think a lot of those are actually lost these days.
Yeah.
And it's like in some of the charm, even as much as people everybody talks about how much they love 36 chambers, and I use 36 chambers. It might have been mastered in a professional studio. I don't know. But to me, it doesn't have that hi-fi sound that everybody knows. Especially if you compare it to Dr. Dre in the '90s, it doesn't have that same sound, but it has a charm to it, a lo-fi charm to it that nobody else can really get to. I think that's the reason why people love, say, the ASR-10 still or the SP-1200 still. It's those lo-fi kind of charms. They're not perfect.
And I'll
agree with you, but actually, I think we're mixing something here, because lo-fi sound doesn't have to do something with mastering. You can have a mastered album that is totally lo-fi sound.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put 36 chambers in your car, in your radio, every track has the same volume. It's easy to listen through. You don't have to adjust volume the whole time, track for track. So I think it's a really good master. But I think mastering has nothing to do with the sound quality in, if it's low quality, if it's lo-fi sound, if it's dirty, or if it's very clean and crispy.
Lots of dynamic variance.
Whoa,
Aaron, mute yourself. And mostly digital. You can really kind of keep. Don't make me smack you.
Or even if you take 36 chambers out of the equation, it was the Master P album I'm thinking of, Ghetto D. Ghetto D is another perfect example, and those levels are all over the place.
Well,
the Last Dawn is like that too. The last of those Millennium albums.
Master P came straight out the damn swamp and didn't know hardly anything about anything, and he happened to just have a good vibe. His music had a certain soul that people related to. But yeah.
Right, and to me that's part of it. It's like I said, it's that charm we're talking about again.
Yeah.
To me, it's always been ideas are more important than being technical.
Mm.
I want to add to that because I want to translate this across aside from just hip hop. Because I will tell you that so there are albums like Minor Threat, Operation Ivy. So I'm going back to some older punk albums that were the dirtiest of the dirty sound, okay, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of this stuff, but these albums were extremely raw. Not only was the recording lo-fi, but the mastering was lo-fi. The mediums were lo-fi. I mean, oftentimes this stuff was put right away to cassette and different things of this, but I totally agree with Mike in the essence that lo-fi does not necessarily mean low quality of sound, and we discussed this in a previous episode. I believe we did, at least either that or we did it in the forum. But regardless, the thing about that is that these days, when you are dealing with a production that is majority-wise inside of the box, we have access to Spectrum EQ. We can handle dynamics in a much more condensed way, as opposed to in the terms of even old school hip hop or punk rock or rock and roll or anything else. Dynamics were all over the place, and it was much harder to get a hold of these things, and you couldn't see all the same things that we can see now. So while I am a proponent of sending tracks out that need to be sent out to get them properly mastered, there is something to be said for, and I know, listen, me being the sound design guy, I'm going to get lambasted about it, but there is something to be said for taking serious notice of things like ozone, mastering suites inside of DAWs. Now, I'm not saying that these are replacements for mastering engineering. These are not replacements for sending tracks off that need to be sent off, sending things off that need to go straight out to, for FM radio and things of that sort. But I will say that it's far easier to master an in-the-box track these days, as opposed to, like Corey was saying about the 80s mentality of, having to use all this outboard stuff and dealing with, if you had 12 different singers in the studio and this and that, of course that's a much more difficult challenge. But these days, if you're able to mix as you go and not necessarily have the space to master properly, but have the knowledge of certain things that are going to be issues, like understanding where your low end is not being heard but being problematic, and things of these these things can be kind of dealt with when not thrown to so much of a consumer level. Like if it's a track that you're just trying to shop around or whatever, I don't personally feel like every single track that you do needs to be mastered.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? That's a good point, and that's why I've used stuff like T-Racks or something like that. You know what I mean? Because maybe you just need to get the sketch to get people to see the vision, right? Now, I will say that you got a good point, because if you got all these dynamics of like the room and there's so much more you have to know about miking drums or miking whatever it is, the anybody's amp or whatever, and those dynamics, all that stuff you have to control, and it's a science to that. When you're in the box, you do have a lot more control over that stuff. But the one thing about when I do stuff in the box and when I end up wanting to master is usually if it's a project. And so I say, okay, I got these 12 songs, maybe 9 of them I produce and 3 of them somebody else produced. Then I want to make sure that it's a cohesive project. So I won't even bother taking that on. And I think that's the thing about knowing your foundation, knowing your skills, knowing your strengths and weaknesses, and knowing when to pass it off so that the project can be all that it really can be, right? And when I send stuff to a mastering engineer, my whole thing is like, okay, look, man, I got these 12 tracks. This is an album. I want you to master it with warmth in mind, because obviously I'm all digital now. I'm making my beats and doing my productions the way I want to do my productions, and I'm pretty good with my ears to be able to hear what I want to hear. But there's something about the magic of mastering that can make music just come alive, and then when it's a project that can make it all cohesive with the same volumes and, you know, having that same, like my mastering engineer will tell me, okay, I'll master it with warmth in mind, and then I don't know what the hell he does. I don't even know if I want to know what he does, but there's songs that I like, say out of 12, I dig these 12 songs. That one song, I maybe dig the least, but then it can get mastered. All of a sudden, that song becomes one of my favorite songs because now it's like he's made it live up to its full potential. And
I think there's a lot to say about a third-party opinion as well. You know, when you're dealing with, you know, say you and maybe a couple other artists are working on the project, and you take that project and you need to move to the next level, there is definitely something to be said, possibly even more so than simply a great room or whatever. Maybe just handing it off to another person to maybe do an alternate mix, maybe just check it out and give a serious critical feedback that you can actually use, not just somebody who's going to listen to it and say, well, maybe this, maybe that, but maybe somebody who actually takes time and is versed in the art of mixing can give their thoughts on this.
That's kind of, and I have to say, if I could add one last thing to that is, even with, as I learned the mixing and even as I got more comfortable with production, there's something to be said about, I don't know what else to call it besides like a buddy system. You know what I mean? Like if you're learning the guitar, you should hang out with guitarists. If you're a DJ, you probably should hang out with DJs. You know what I mean? Like you want to be able to, you can't be in a bubble. And I know that my production and what I do has benefited a lot from kind of like a buddy system like that, from being able to just, as I'm growing up, getting a new piece of gear and learning it, and then being able to say, yo, man, I did this the other night, and then cats say, oh, but have you tried this? If you try this, that, and the other, and then, you realize what you're doing is really sharpening your sword, So that third-party opinion is important, like across the board with that stuff.
Right, it's the whole peer review thing. It's like you remember being back in school and you'd have to write a paper for a class. Teacher tells you, oh, give it to a classmate to read over and make sure it's on point. And to me, what we're describing is the same kind of thing. You give it to other producers or mix engineers, master engineers, whatever. Make sure you're not missing something because, you might hear something in your head, it's one way, and then it translates to somebody else another way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Music can't be all about your own viewpoints.
I want to clarify because I did get a message from one of the chat rooms from Pete Marriott about the fact that he is on the side of anything that you release should be mastered, and I want to clarify that I totally agree with that. If you're releasing it to consumers, it absolutely should be mastered, and you will find that. Even though they're consumers, they're laymen, they're people that are not versed in what we do day to day, it's one of those things where
know if something sounds bad.
I heard a joke from I'm a big comedy fan, but I'll tell you, I heard a joke from Amy Schumer the other day, and she said nobody's looking for balls, but when they're missing, you miss them, and it's the same with mastering. It's like people aren't listening. Consumers aren't listening for mastering, but when it's not there,
they know what's up. They know it's something going on.
People will miss it. And I tell you, being somebody who makes a lot of music and I ride around with friends, and yes, I'm completely guilty of being one of the people who drives around in his car listening to his own music. I am that guy. I am. I do it all the time. I am. What's his name from Semi-Pro? That's me, okay? I'm the guy who wants to put on his own song and listen to it, okay? Because I made the music because I'm tired of listening to what your music sounds like.
That's right.
So, with that being said, when a song is not mastered and you listen to it in discrepancy next to another song, you're going to hear this disparaging difference. You're going to hear, a quality mastered song next to a raw exported file that maybe has been normalized, maybe it hasn't, whatever, you know, maybe you've done just a little here and there, you will hear a massive difference as far as overall listenability, what's fatiguing to the ear, what's not. Now, we can get into the idea of the loudness wars and whether or not, you know, the master should be slammed up and as loud as absolutely possible, or if you would rather allow the user to use their volume knob on their radio, which, you know, I personally prefer. But the bottom line is that mastering is not just about loudness. It's definitely not just about loudness. It's also about sculpting the sound into something that's not fatiguing on your ear and something that is going to be an enjoyable experience for people who just want to listen to good music.
Yeah. You know what it is with mastering it, and maybe in a really overly simplified term, it's like your product, your music is like the cake, right? What mastering should be doing is putting the icing on it. You know what I mean? It's like it makes it into that next level thing where, you know, it's just something that you probably couldn't achieve. And I will say, as far as anything you put out to the public needs to be mastered, I agree with that. But I did just last year put out a EP that I decidedly did not master, did not go back and retouch, did not go back and do anything. These are just stuff, like you said, you ride around listening to your music. These are just things that I ride around listening to that I've made that didn't make other projects. So I decided I'm going to take 8 of these joints and I'm just going to put them out. Like literally I decided one night and I decided on a date, and 2 weeks later I put it out, and, you know, it got a little bit of buzz and some pretty good reviews and stuff. But I think my point with that was just to, okay, this is not even, I didn't even bother putting it on iTunes or any of that kind of stuff. It was like, here, I'm giving this away. Just check it out. This is what I'm listening to when I'm just riding around. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you a question. An interesting side note to that is, so being somebody who's been, you know, again, involved in hip-hop for a long time, I'm extremely familiar with the mixtape scene, which is not the same as most other genres of music don't experience what hip-hop experiences with the mixtape scene. I'm not a country music expert, so I can't say if there's a country music mixtape scene. I don't know, so don't kill me. But being involved in other forms of rock, I don't see it nearly as much. So what I want to say is mixtapes, and I grew up, you know, with the Tony Touch tapes and going back with lots of great hip hop tapes, and then of course there was the whole other genre of mixtapes of like the Who Kids, you know, and I'm you know, Green Lanterns and all that great stuff. But that stuff, a lot of it was direct from vinyl to a tape and put out, and because it was done in the way that it was done, it wasn't mastered, it was just put out. Now some of the flip side of that is also that it was duplicated so much that it degraded in quality as it went down. So depending on how far you were away from a major city, often dictated how low quality your mixtape was that you got of these, you know, if you got the 60-second Assassins and all this stuff, and it was, you know, and you were out in Idaho or wherever you were, chances are your version of it was a little bit different from the New York and Philly version of it. But with that being said, you're dealing with trying to break a song. Now, it became an accepted fashion to break these songs in this bootlegged way, which was not mastered. The sound quality was extremely lo-fi, but it became acceptable. So my question to you guys is, when is it acceptable in the same fashion of a mixtape to have something that maybe isn't mixed properly, isn't properly mastered, and put it out? You know, is that okay?
I'm at a point where I'm almost like, no, because we're in this digital era where everything is literally photocopied. You know, so there is no reason. It's not like a cassette tape where, like you said, every generation, every time you copy that tape, it got worse and worse. Nowadays, everybody's downloading identical photocopies of the same song.
Let me just quickly interject and say, there is oftentimes a time where you will find an MP3 that is tossed throughout the internet that is at 320 kbs. But if you dive into the file, it was
sounds
originally
like shit.
like 128, and then they up converted it, which, as we all know, is nothing but like Artifact Central. So it's like,
Yeah.
I can't agree with you on that.
I get what you're saying. I should have taken into account know what you're doing factor. Because if people don't know what they're doing, they're sharing the files, then that's a lost cause.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we have Aaron 25 Keys, who was a late joiner, so he gets a slight slap in the face. But he did move from New York to Florida this week, so I'm just happy to see that he's safe. So I want to.
Congratulations, Joe.
All right. Well, I got like a house full of family in the back room, so I snuck in here because this topic is real. I'm passionate about this topic. Like I say, stemming back from the trying to be great, stop you from being good. It's kind of funny, my name, 25 Keys, so a lot of my friends know me is because I used to use the 25 key MIDI. Been doing this for 20 years in the game. So it kind of worked hand in hand. I just kind of to jump forward to the mastering. Don't master a lot of my releases. Master an EP because I would definitely want to make sure the cohesiveness between the songs tells the tale that I want it to take. You know, I really want song. You know, the energy flows the same, the bass energy. Where I may have a song that was high, fast paced versus a slower paced song, I want to make sure the energy stays the same. But on the flip side of that, if I release, I very seldom personally master. Another thing that we have to also think about is a lot of the sounds that we're using now have already been compressed. And they've kind of been done for radio-friendly sounds, I would say.
So I'm gonna slightly interrupt you here, just because your internet connection is very Floridian.
You got that Walmart internet, homie.
and I think that also gets back to a lot of what we were discussing on an in-the-box production versus an out-of-the-box production. And the fact that you are able to really kind of tamp down dynamics and you're really able to control things that are in the box in ways that really previously was not possible. And not only that, metering suite. I mean, dealing with the fact that like Ozone 5 Advanced, the metering suites in that, there's no way I would have been able to just, generally speaking, as a hip-hop producer or whatever, or just as a music producer working out of their own house, have access to that kind of metering. I don't know how to, okay. So, Richard London's shades are very loud, so I'm gonna wait. So, I just want to say that to me, it's I think it comes down a lot to what's going to work for your particular genre, what's going to work for your particular workflow. I still believe that a third-party source is always good to have, whether they're involved in the actual mixing or whether they're there to critique or just to give you a fresh pair of ears and perception.
And the other thing too, that you gotta mention if you're talking about this, when I send stuff to a mastering engineer, and I mean it's debatable when or why you might want to do that, but I know that when I send stuff to a mastering engineer, this dude is set up for mastering. It's not something that I can do myself. It's just not something I can do. I'm not saying like I just don't have the talent or the skill. Beyond that, I don't have the thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment and the room optimized for that. So I know that when I send stuff to this cat, he's really able to master it. And there was a point when I used to think like, what can he really do that I couldn't possibly do with something that I have installed on my computer or something, and with a little dexterity and a little, persistence. But when I heard the results that a mastering engineer can bring back, to your music, especially when you've done enough projects with a master and engineer, a particular guy, that he starts to know your aesthetic and your sound. You know what I mean? There's something magical about that I certainly can't match on my own.
I've also found that just in general, when you're using a mastering engineer, and this is my personal situation, so I don't know how much it applies to everyone else, but there is a point when working on a project where you get tired, and I'm not just talking about ear fatigue, but I'm talking about getting tired. You've been working on a project for 6 months to a year, and you've got all these things going on, and eventually going back and doing the mastering on all these projects, it's, you might not put forth the same kind of effort as someone new to the project who's dedicated to a specific position. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that as well. Enthusiasm in the studio and enthusiasm in your job is huge. I find that to be massive. So again, it comes down to, like you said, having a proper space that can actually, catch the problematic frequencies that, a typical set of, studio production monitors are not going to catch. Now, I'm not one of those guys who will sit there and say you need, $5,000 monitoring setup in your production setup, because I don't believe that.
Right.
However, in a mastering setup, that is a totally different scenario. And in that case, yeah, you do need to have a certain level of quality. You do need to have the ability to have everything decoupled and be able to find those problems. Whereas if you're in the middle of making music, that's not nearly as big of a deal,
Right. And I think it goes back to being a specialist, like Corey was talking about too. You think about, if we take it back to production, how many of these producers that we consider, say amazing, say like a Dr. Dre or Pete Rock or somebody, the things that they all have in common is they're specialists. They're not trying to do everything, and I think that's a problem with this generation of producers. There's so many trying to do everything. They're trying to be a mix engineer. They're trying to be a mastering engineer. They want to make every genre of music. They want to do so many things that they're kind of okay at everything, but they'll never be great at anything, and they'll never stand out because, one, everybody's already labeled them as one thing, and two, they're not taking the time and nurturing to master one thing at a time.
A jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly.
And I think we live in an era where there's so much music out there that you cannot do that if you want to see success.
And I think it's not only the music. When you listen to these guys, they want to do their own artwork. They want to be graphic designers. They want to be video editors. They want to be everything at the same time. And I think it's probably because you have access to so many tutorials and information. It's so easy to learn the basics of all this stuff that it's really easy to jump in. But if you want to do everything yourself, you don't have the time to master it. It's just too much at one time.
And on top of that too, and it's to make just a good point. It's really just to add on to what you're saying is that's the reason why I don't have more music out. You know what I mean? Because it's like I don't have time to make the videos and I can do the graphic design, but I don't have the time to do that. And if you're really concentrating on making a fresh product, your music, you don't have I can't even split my creativity in that many ways, even if I have the skill in certain different places. You know what I mean? And so it's like at some point it's kind of like, well, I'm just gonna make dope music. You know what I mean? I don't got time to be trying to be the video production crew and the graphic designer and the mastering dude and the mixing dude and the fresh MC and the beat man. It's exhausting, quite frankly.
Exactly. It's the reason why your job has a janitor, management, and an IT department.
That's right.
Because, the IT department isn't cleaning toilets. They're specialized in fixing shit.
That's right. That's right.
But
I think one thing that you really got to pull away from the beginning of this whole topic is more the fact that absolutely what you're saying. These days, a lot of people are trying to be everything, and sometimes it's out of necessity. Sometimes it's out of the fact that they just don't want to pay. They do want to be cheap, and I can understand that at the same time. But at some point you have to decide how much you're willing to invest in the end product. And I think that's where a lot of the choices that possibly are wrong get made. That, you know, it's like a lot of the times I've seen movies where people will do these movies and they'll budget for everything but the sound. And then you're left wondering, okay, well, you budgeted for everything but the sound, and now you're expecting the sound to be on the same level as the film. It's just not going to be that way. It's the same with mastering. You know, if you budget all your time, your effort, your money, your gear, your creativity, everything towards the production, and then you leave the final stage that is, you know, in many regards extremely important, you know, you are going to end up cheapening the whole product. So you really have to think about that ahead of time before you even get involved in doing a large, you know, release.
It's true.
I think everybody needs to go back, depending on, you know, where you are, and just, you know, even if you're a jack of all trades, there is one of those trades you know in your heart you excel at. So that's the lane you really need to stay in and put all your energies into. I do music, been doing music for a while, but I'll be honest, my forte is mixing. I love to sit behind a board. I'll sit behind a mixing board till the end of time and harness the greatest sounding hi-hat sound that you ever heard. Where somebody be like, man, let's move on from that hi-hat. But I've always been that way even when I was an artist. When I started back in DJing, when I was a rapper back in the 80s, I would be the one guy that, all right, let's lay the track down. When everybody's like, it's great, I would walk from the microphone and sit beside the engineer. What are you doing? Why are you tweaking this? Why are you doing this? Before I had samples, I was the guy that would search the keyboard magazines and all those articles to try to find out, oh, that was the lately bass, that was the 909, that was the DX7. And I realized over the years, yeah, I put out music, but a lot of times my music is just really me expressing my mixing. I use my music so much because I really enjoy mixing. And that's my, like, just recently I got an EP I'm working on. I just sent it over to the guy that does do my videos and my mastering when I do an EP, and I got a remix on that I thought was better than mine. And the guy heard it and said, I like your version better than the remix. I'm thinking the other version. And he goes, your mix sounds bigger. But it's again because even though I do music, I enjoy the mix aspect of putting songs together. So versus just being, so you like doing beats and be the beat guy. You know, that's one thing. Remember we had crews back in the day? You know, one guy, we don't have crews no more. Everybody's a soldier of one now.
You know? Everybody wants to be a solo artist. Yeah. It started with Amarion. Amarion didn't want to be B2K. He wanted to be Amarion. And everybody did it afterward.
Yeah, you know, be a crew. You do beats, great. You might have another guy that, stop. Everybody want to be Night Wonder. But you look at Just Blaze. Just Blaze is great, but Just Blaze has a studio and he has an engineer.
Yeah. Which, by the way, is from Delaware, I might add. That's Young Guru out of Delaware. So.
Young Guru is amazing.
I'm always giving shouts out to Delaware, okay?
Young Guru, because Young Guru is fucking amazing.
By the way, drinking some Delaware beer today. So, from Dominion. So I gotta give that up.
Delaware chick on there.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap this up, and I just want to say thanks to ModeAudio.com for providing Sal, our illustrious winner. So congratulations, Sal, for getting to choose his Mode Audio Reason Refill. So that should be very nice, and I look forward to hearing more work from Sal.
Thank you, guys.
overall, I think it's been a great discussion, and hopefully during our next show we can have Pete Marriott come on and just give his thoughts about this as well, because I know that he's been in the chat room just kind of fuming up a little bit over the talk of mastering. And
yeah, Pete's been asking me the last few episodes to get him on. I just when we're getting ready for the show, I'm always out and about, and I'm like walking in the door. I'm always the last one to show up.
Shout out to Pete Marriott. You know, it's not that I'm not listening to you. I know you're out there. So
Pete Marriott, he ignored you. Don't listen to him.
So I just want to say that this is Flux of fluxwithit.com. Please, 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 if you use Machine or any other drum sampler, please check out the Machine expansion packs and the expansion packs that I have on both bigfishaudio.com, themachinewarehouse.com, and fluxwithit.com. Please check those out. I'm going to pass it off to Aaron, 25 Keys, who I'm so excited is back in Florida. Why, I don't really know, but he's there. So
He likes gators.
I'm going to pass it off to him so he can say goodbye as well.
The U, baby, the U, Miami U, football time. I'm back for football season. That's why. No. Now, you know what, man? It was time. I mean, not only like I said, I'm back to my roots. The sound that I had learned in Miami with the Miami bass genre, I took it to New York. I met some really great New York producers. I got to do a lot of conventions, a lot of things added to my repertoire. So now I'm just taking it back to Florida where it began. For me personally, get back to my family, which is my foundation, my mom, my pops, just those elements had to get back into me so I can take it to the next level of whatever 25 Keys is, which is slowly developing into sound design. Plug for future sound design. But yeah, man, I'm glad I did make it. It was a long journey. I made it safe and sound. I got a house full of Puerto Rican family in the back, so that's why the door is locked. I'm in the kids' room, which explains all the pinkness around me.
It suits you. Pink is your color.
But, just happy to be here, man. Glad we can all get together.
And what was the name of the latest release?
It's called, stop. My next one is called BBE. It's bass, boom, electro. It's just kind of a mashup between bass music, that booty genre, and the electronic genre.
Absolutely. All right, let's pass off to Corey at B-Boy Tech Report.
Yo, it's Corey from B-Boy Tech Report. Thanks for having me, guys. It's always good to I mean, usually I'm typing it up, but it's cool to chat it up with you guys. And yo, whenever you get a chance, come stop by B-Boy Tech Report. Check me out on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, B-Boy Tech Report. And for those people out there that might be checking the site on a regular, bear with me because I'm not keeping up as many articles as I used to because I'm currently finishing up my graduate degree. So I got about 6 to 8 months before I finish that up, and I'll keep articles and keep content coming, but it won't be as big volume as it was, say, even earlier this year. But we're gonna get back into it because I have people collaborating and contributing stuff too. So thanks for the support and check me out. B-Boy Tech.
Congrats on the degree, by the way, man. That's hard work.
Absolutely.
I'm working on my undergrad. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and doing that and doing all the other stuff, and having family on top of that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a juggling act, so I'm getting through it though.
The plight of the producer. So moving on to Kev West, to KevWestBeats.com.
What up? Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Don't forget, check out the reviews I've been doing. Everybody knows I've slowed down because, like Corey did, I'm going to school too, working on my undergrad degree, so that's been taking a lot of my time. Check out my Sample Tank review. I wanted to talk about Sample Tank today. We didn't get a chance to, ran out of time, but I love it. Trying to think what else. Check out my EP on SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/KevWestBeats. EP's called Your Girl Wants Kev. It's an electronic EP. I'm just trying something new. I'm going to pass it off to Mike.
Yo, thanks for watching. No big news from Pat Bangers at this time. I'm working on some new stuff for you guys, and I will let you know as soon as it's ready to be shoot out in the public. And I'll pass it over to Sal.
Hey guys, Sal DeGuardia. Thanks again the producers Hangout, Mode Audio, everybody that was a part of it. It was a really neat project to be a part of, and very stoked for the free stuff from Mode Audio. Can't thank them enough. Yeah, if you want to check me out, you're welcome to Sal.DiGuardia, or you could visit my SoundCloud. There's only a few things up there, but
What was your
yeah,
SoundCloud?
SoundCloud is Salvatore-DiGuardia. So that's a mouthful, and it's probably too many letters right now. But that's because it's probably more for like us, friends, family, that kind of stuff, and then we'll put something serious up when we get tracks and get a real
Excellent.
deal. Yeah.
It's
All
a work
right.
in progress. It requires that love. It'll be all right.
That's exactly right.
I'll say goodbye for Richard, who came in late, so he got put in the corner. But Richard London Sound Design of London.
No mic support.
Yeah, London Sound Design. And so if you get a chance, check out his stuff. If it's not out yet, yell at him to get it out. That's what I like to do. It makes me happy.
Can't defend myself, can I?
No, not at all.
Nope.
Not at all. No. Get it out. Get it out, because people want to hear it. So he's got some excellent products on the way. So I'm pushing. So I just want to say again, some interesting things that are happening real quick, just off the cuff. I know RF Nomad and Evaton Technologies is having a sale right now. So if you're into Eurorack, or if you have one of these guys, the Microkorg, and you need a cool adapter so that you can use a regular microphone with it, go over there, check them out. They've got some cool sales going on right now. And Eurorack Modulars has some cool sales going on right now. They do VCOs, mixers, all kinds of cool stuff for the modular synthesizers that are all the hipster rage right now. So I highly recommend checking that out. And we will see you in 2 weeks, unless we have a special show, in which case it might be shorter than that. But as of right now, let's say 2 weeks, right?
I just thought about something. You hate that microcork so much that you use it as a footrest.
No. That's my other MPC.
Have a good week, everybody.
All right, everybody. Peace. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Peace out.